Captain Ava Rostova was not a popular officer, and she knew it. She worked at the edge of the sprawling desert airbase in a tin hangar that always smelled of grease and stale coffee. Her job was keeping the A-10 warthogs flying. The planes were like her, old, tough, and not very pretty. The pilots loved them. The commanders, who preferred sleek new jets, ignored them. Ava's uniform was always stained. Her dark hair was pulled back so tight it made her eyes narrow. She didn't smile much. Her team of mechanics, mostly older men just waiting on retirement, called her Captain 10. It was short for A-10. She didn't mind. She understood the planes. They were built to take a beating and keep fighting. The trouble started when Colonel Marcus Thorne took command of the maintenance wing. Thorne was a new kind of leader. His uniform was always pressed. His boots shined like black glass. He talked about synergy and optimization. He did not like grease. On his first inspection, he walked into Ava's hangar. The noise of air tools stopped. Colonel Thorne's gaze swept over the cluttered benches and the half-disassembled engine. He looked at Ava, taking in the smudge of oil on her cheek. "Captain Rostova," he said, his voice quiet but sharp. "I am told they call you the A-10. "It's just a nickname, sir," Ava said, her voice flat. "I find it fitting," Thorne said. He tapped a greasy manual with his polished glove. Outdated, ugly, and destined for the boneyard. "This entire operation is a disgrace." Ava's crew tensed. She felt the heat rise in her neck, but she kept her face like stone. "My team delivers a 90% mission-capable rate." "Colonel," she said. Thorne smiled, a thin, cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Your rate is not the issue, Captain. Your attitude is, this hangar is a relic. You are a relic." He looked around as if he had just decided something. "I am reassigning you. We have a severe organizational problem in Base Supply, Warehouse 4. You will report there tomorrow. Perhaps you can get your hands on. Experience working on boxes." A cold silence fell. Warehouse 4 was where careers went to die. It was a massive, dark building filled with forgotten supplies, from old uniforms to broken truck parts. It was a dumping ground. "Sir," Ava said, the one word slipping out. "You are a logistics officer, Captain." "Go logist. Dismissed," Thorne said. He turned and walked out, his boots clicking on the concrete. Ava stood still for a long moment. The oldest mechanic, a master sergeant named Sarge Peters, spat on the ground. "He can't do that," Sarge grumbled. Ava finally moved, picking up a wrench. Her hands were steady. "He just did, Sarge," she said. "He just did." Warehouse 4 was worse than Ava had imagined. It was a metal cavern, cold in the mornings and baking hot by the afternoon. The lights were dim, and the air was thick with the smell of dust and old canvas. Her new team was 2 airmen who spent most of their day hiding, and a civilian manager who was 3 months from retirement. Ava's new office was a metal cage in the corner. Her new job was inventory reconciliation. For 20 years, broken equipment and surplus gear had been dumped in the warehouse. The records were a fantasy. Colonel Thorne meant for this to break her. He wanted her to quit, to put in for a transfer, to disappear. For the first week, Ava felt a cold, hard knot of despair. She would sit in her truck during her lunch break, staring at the distant flight line. She could hear the whine of the new jets, the ones Thorne loved. She missed the roar of her A-10s. She missed the smell of jet fuel. She missed the grease. One afternoon, her old mechanic, Sarge Peters, showed up. He was holding 2 paper cups of bad coffee. "Figured you could use this, Captain 10, he said, handing her a cup. Ava took it. "You shouldn't be here, Sarge. Thorne sees you." "Let him," Sarge said. He looked around the dusty maze of shelves. "So this is the boneyard, huh?" "He really did you dirty, Captain." "It's a mess," Ava said. "The inventory is a joke. Nothing matches." "Yeah, well," Sarge said, "Thorne's been making a lot of messes." Ava looked at him. "What do you mean?" "He's cleaning house," Sarge said, his voice low. "Pushing out anyone who's not one of his new optimized guys. And there's talk. Trucks coming and going from the main supply depot. At night, not on any schedule." Ava frowned. "What kind of talk?" "Just weird stuff. We're suddenly short on basic parts, turbine blades, avionics, stuff that was supposedly in stock. Thorne just blames the old system and orders more. Ava felt a cold prickle on her neck. Her warehouse was full of old junk. But the main supply depot, that was different. It's probably nothing, Sarge. Just bad management. Yeah, maybe, Sarge said. He finished his coffee. You take care of yourself, Captain. Don't let this place beat you. After he left, Ava looked at the rows and rows of boxes. She was a mechanic. She fixed things that were broken. She looked at the inventory computer. A slow, ancient machine. That night, she didn't go home. She started in the back corner with a clipboard and a flashlight. She was going to organize the chaos. She was going to count every single bolt, every boot, every broken radio. She didn't know it, but she was looking for a needle in a haystack. And Colonel Thorne was the one who had hidden it. For 3 weeks, Ava worked. She worked until her back ached and her eyes burned. She made the 2 young airmen work too. They hated her for it at first. But then they started to see the change. The aisles cleared. The shelves were labeled. A pattern was emerging from the chaos. Ava found things that had been lost for years. A crate of brand new medical kits, a pallet of helicopter rotor blades, a box of night vision goggles that were still on the base's active inventory list. She was documenting everything, every serial number, every date. One Tuesday, she was in the darkest corner of the warehouse in Section G, which was reserved for decommissioned gear. Behind a stack of rotting tents, she found a single sealed wooden crate. It was marked with a symbol she didn't recognize. It wasn't on her inventory list. She got a crowbar. The nails screeched as she pried the lid open. Inside, packed in foam, were 12 advanced targeting pods. They were not old. They were brand new. They were the exact kind used by the new, sleek F-35 jets that Colonel Thorne loved. Her stomach turned to ice. These pods were worth millions. They were not surplus. They were supposed to be on the flight line. She checked the serial numbers. Then she went to her computer and logged into the base-wide supply system. She typed in the first number. The system flashed red. Item reported destroyed. 0315 C. Thorne, all 12 pods. Colonel Thorne himself had signed off that they were destroyed in a training accident. But they weren't destroyed. They were here, hidden in her warehouse. Before she could even think, the warehouse doors rumbled open. 3 men in dark uniforms walked in. They weren't mechanics. They were security forces. And behind them was Colonel Thorne. Captain Rostova, he said, a look of fake surprise on his face. Working hard, I see. His eyes flicked to the open crate. We received an anonymous tip, Thorne said, his voice dripping with false regret. That you were holding unauthorized equipment. I didn't want to believe it. Sir, I just found this, Ava said, her voice hard. These pods were reported destroyed by you. Thorne laughed. By me? Captain, that's a serious accusation. He turned to the security men. It seems the captain has been running a little side business. Stealing advanced equipment, hiding it, waiting to sell it. That's a lie, Ava said, stepping in front of the crate. Is it? Thorne said. Then why did we find this in your desk? One of the security men held up an evidence bag. Inside was a small encrypted hard drive. Ava had never seen it before. And why, Thorne continued, did our investigation link that drive to several offshore bank accounts? You must have been very busy in this dusty old warehouse. Ava looked at his cold, satisfied eyes. She had been set up. He had hidden the pods here. He had planted the drive. She had walked right into his trap. Colonel, she started. This is a sad day, Thorne said, cutting her off. I had hopes for you, but you are a thief. You are a disgrace to the uniform. He nodded to the security men. Captain Rostova, you are under arrest. You are relieved of your duties. As far as this base is concerned, you are gone. Ava sat in a small gray room at the base stockade, the military brig. It was cold. There was one small window covered with thick wire. She had been there for 2 days. A young, nervous lawyer had been assigned to her. He had told her the evidence was overwhelming. The hard drive had detailed plans. The bank accounts had recent deposits. The colonel's story was perfect. A disgruntled officer, shoved into a dead-end job, decided to steal for revenge. They offered her a deal. plead guilty, name her accomplices. They assumed she wasn't smart enough to do it alone, and she would get 10 years. If she fought it, she would get 30. She told the lawyer to leave. She was alone. She felt the gray walls closing in. Thorne had won. He had taken her hangar, her career, and now her freedom. He hadn't just beaten her. He had erased her. The colonel had said she was gone. And he was right. She lay on the thin cot. She thought about her father, a mechanic himself, who told her to always fix what was broken. She had tried. But this was not broken. It was rotten. She closed her eyes. She thought of the A-10 Warthog. The plane was famous for one thing above all else. It could fly with one engine. It could fly with half a wing. It was designed to take heavy damage, to be shot full of holes, and to still bring its pilot home. Ava sat up. Her eyes were not desperate anymore. They were cold. Thorne thought he had destroyed her. He had only shown her what she was made of. She was Captain 10. She was the A-10. A guard came to her cell door. "You have a visitor." "Your lawyer again?" Ava stood up. But it wasn't the young, nervous lawyer. It was Sarge Peters. He was holding a legal briefcase. The guard looked the other way. "They only gave me 5 minutes," Sarge whispered, his face grim. "They're moving you tomorrow, to the federal prison at Leavenworth, to await trial." "Sarge, it was a setup," Ava said, her voice low. "Thorne, he hid those pods." "We know," Sarge said. "The whole hangar knows. But knowing and proving are two different things." He looked tired. "Listen, Ava, I've been snooping. Thorne's aide, the slick one, he's been meeting a civilian, off base, a logistics guy." Sarge slipped a piece of paper through the bars. It was a napkin from a local diner. On it was a name, R.J. Miller, Apex Logistics, and a license plate number. "This Miller guy," Sarge said, "he drives a blue truck, and he's been at the main supply depot at night." The guard cleared his throat. "Time's up, Sergeant." Sarge nodded. He looked Ava in the eye. "The A-10 always comes home, Captain," he whispered. Ava hid the napkin. She knew what she had to do. They were moving her tomorrow. That meant she had one night. She looked at the small window. She looked at the simple lock on her cell door. She was a mechanic, after all, and mechanics know how to take things apart. At 2 a.m., the base was quiet. The only sound in the brig was the guards snoring at the main desk. Ava had worked on the cell lock for 3 hours. She had used the metal support from inside her cot mattress. It was a simple pin-and-tumbler lock. It was designed to keep people in, not to stop someone who understood mechanics. With a quiet click, the lock opened. She slipped out of her cell. She moved like a shadow. She had spent her whole life learning how things worked. The brig was just another machine. She found the rear maintenance door. The lock was even easier. A blast of cold desert air hit her. She was free, but she was also a fugitive. If she was caught now, it wasn't just theft. It was escape. She would be buried. She stayed in the shadows, moving along the edges of the base. She knew the drainage ditches, the old fences, the blind spots in the camera coverage. She had spent years walking this base. She made it to the boneyard, the aircraft graveyard near her old hangar. She found what she was looking for, an old beat-up maintenance truck that Sarge kept running for spare parts. The keys were exactly where he always left them, under the floor mat. She drove without headlights, slipping out a service gate that was rarely used. The town outside the base was asleep. She drove to the diner on the napkin. It was closed, but she saw it, the blue truck with the matching license plate. It was parked at a cheap motel across the street. Ava parked her truck in a dark alley, and she waited. She was the A-10 circling the battlefield, waiting for the target to show itself. At 4:30 a.m., a man came out of the motel room. He was holding a heavy briefcase. R.J. Miller. He got in the blue truck and drove, not toward the highway, but back toward the base. Ava followed, her lights off. Miller didn't go to the main gate. He drove to a remote part of the fence near the main supply depot. A gate opened. Waiting there was Colonel Thorne's aide. Ava watched from a distance. She saw them unload boxes from the back of Miller's truck and load other heavier crates into it. It was a trade. Ava turned on her phone for the first time. She had 1 bar of battery. She took pictures. She filmed the exchange. It was grainy. It was dark. But it was proof. She saw them shake hands. Miller drove away. The aide drove back toward the main base. Ava knew she had to leave. She had to get this evidence to someone. But as she started to reverse, her truck light caught something on the ground, a piece of paper that had blown out of Miller's truck. She got out. She picked it up. It was a shipping label. Her blood ran cold. The label wasn't for Apex Logistics. It was for a company that sold protective equipment. And the address? It wasn't a U.S. address. It was overseas. Sarge had said they were short on parts. But Thorne wasn't just stealing parts. He was selling them. He was selling U.S. military equipment to a foreign buyer. This wasn't theft. This was treason. Ava drove. She didn't go back to the base. She drove to the small, dusty town of Barstow, an hour away. She ditched the maintenance truck and threw her phone in a storm drain. She was a ghost. She found a bus station and bought a ticket with the few dollars she had. She needed a computer. She needed to get this information out. She ended up at a public library. She looked at her reflection in the window. Her face was streaked with dirt and grease from the truck. Her uniform was torn. Her eyes were dark with exhaustion. She looked like a homeless veteran, and in a way she was. She was scarred. But she was alive. She sat at a public computer. She created a new anonymous email account. She attached the photos and the grainy video, but who to send it to? She thought of Sarge, but he was on the inside. This would put him in danger. She thought of the base commander, but he was Thorne's friend. She needed someone outside the chain of command. Someone Thorne couldn't control. She sent the first email to the local newspaper. She sent the second email to the state senator. She sent the third email to the one person she knew was as stubborn as she was, an old instructor from her academy days, a woman who was now a 3-star general at the Pentagon. She wrote one line in the email, "Colonel Thorne at Desert Base. He's not stealing. He's selling. Look at the pods. Look at Apex Logistics." A-10 she hit send. For a moment she felt relief. But it faded. The evidence was thin. A dark video. A blurry photo. It wasn't enough to stop a man like Thorne. It was her word against his. And she was a fugitive. She needed the original files. The real shipping orders. The bank transfers. She knew where they would be. Not on a secret hard drive. Thorne was too smart for that. They would be on the one computer he trusted. His own. In his office. In the command building. In the middle of the base, Ava looked at the library clock. It was 10 a.m. They had been hunting for her for 8 hours. She had to go back. She had to fly back into the fire. She stood up and walked out of the library into the bright desert sun. She was no longer running away. She was attacking. Getting back onto the base was harder than getting off. But Ava didn't go for the gates. She went for the drainage tunnels. She had studied the base maps. She knew the old systems. She walked for a mile in the dark, wading through ankle-deep water until she came up through a grate right behind the command building. It was the middle of the day. The base was busy. She was still in her dirty, torn uniform. She looked like she had just come from a war. She pulled her cap low and walked with purpose, blending in with the maintenance crews. She got inside the building. She knew Thorne's office was on the second floor. She climbed the stairs. A young lieutenant walked past her, his nose wrinkled at her appearance, but he said nothing. She was invisible. She reached Thorne's office. The door was locked. A simple electronic lock. She pulled the tools she had borrowed from the maintenance truck. She was a mechanic. This was just another engine. She shorted the wires. The lock clicked open. She slipped inside. The office was spotless. A flag stood in the corner. His desk was clear. She went to his computer. It was locked. She heard voices in the hall. Her heart hammered. She didn't have time to hack the password. She looked under the desk. She unplugged the main computer tower. She picked it up. It was heavy. She walked to the door. She opened it. Colonel Thorne was standing right there. He stared at her. His eyes went from her face to her dirty uniform to the computer tower in her arms. His face turned pale, then dark red. "You," he whispered, his voice choked with rage. "You're supposed to be gone." "You missed a few parts, Colonel," Ava said, her voice quiet. He lunged for her. He was bigger, stronger. He grabbed her arm, trying to get the computer. "I will end you," he hissed. Ava didn't fight him. She was an A-10. She didn't have to be fast. She just had to be tough. She held onto the computer, planting her feet. "Security!" Thorne yelled. "Security! I have her!" Ava knew she had seconds. She couldn't get out of the building. But she didn't need to. With all her strength, she shoved the computer tower at him. He stumbled back, catching it. In that moment, she turned and ran. Not for the stairs. For the window. She smashed the office chair through the plate glass. "Ava, no!" Thorne yelled, dropping the computer. She didn't jump. She just looked down at the courtyard 2 stories below. She heard the guards running down the hall. She had nowhere to go. She turned back as Thorne and 2 security men burst into the room. "It's over, Captain," Thorne said, breathing hard. He was smiling now. He had her. He had the computer. "You are finished." Ava looked at him. She was cornered. But she didn't look defeated. "You're right." "Colonel," she said. From the courtyard below, a new voice boomed, amplified by a megaphone. "Colonel Marcus Thorne, you are under arrest by order of the Department of the Air Force. Exit the building with your hands in the air." Thorne's smile vanished. He ran to the broken window. The courtyard was filled with black vehicles. Not base security. These were men in dark, serious uniforms. CID, criminal investigation. Thorne spun around. He looked at Ava. "What did you do?" Ava just looked at him, her face calm. The general. Her email from the library. It had been enough. "They aren't here for me, Colonel," Ava said. "They're here for you." Colonel Thorne did not go quietly. But he went. The CID agents put him in cuffs and led him out of his own spotless office. They took the computer. They took his files. Ava sat on the floor, her back against the wall, surrounded by broken glass. She was exhausted. It was over. A new man walked in. He was older, with a kind face and the stars of a general on his shoulders. He looked at Ava, then at the mess. "Are you Captain Rostova?" he asked. "Yes, sir. I'm General Harris. I got an email this morning from an old friend of yours. Told me to look into a situation here." He sighed. "We've been watching Thorne for months. We knew he was dirty. We just couldn't find the proof. He was too clean. Until you. You kicked the anthill, Captain. Sir, I broke a lot of rules," Ava said, her voice tired. "Yes, you did," the general said. "You escaped custody. You stole a government vehicle. You broke into a superior officer's office. And you destroyed a perfectly good window." He paused. "You also just brought down one of the most corrupt officers I've ever seen. You saved this government about $50 million. And you probably saved the lives of soldiers who would have used the faulty equipment he was selling." He held out a hand. Ava took it. He pulled her to her feet. "All charges against you are dropped," the general said. "We're clearing your record. Completely." "Thank you, sir," Ava whispered. "One more thing," he said. "Warehouse 4 is a mess. I need someone to run it. Someone I can trust to get it clean, but I have a feeling that's not what you want." "Sir," Ava said, "my hangar is at the edge of the base. Hangar 7. My A-10s are there." The general smiled. "I know. Go fix your planes, Captain." Ava walked out of the command building. She was still in the same torn, dirty uniform. The entire base was watching. She didn't care. She just walked. She walked the long mile back to Hangar 7. When she was 100 yards away, she saw them. Her whole crew, standing outside the open hangar doors. Sarge Peters was in the front. She kept walking. When she got to them, Sarge looked her up and down. He looked at the dirt, the torn cloth, the exhaustion in her eyes. He cracked a small smile. "You look like hell, Captain 10. "It was a rough inspection, Sarge," Ava said. Sarge's smile faded. He stepped back, stood tall, and raised his hand in a sharp, perfect salute. "Welcome home, Captain," he said. One by one, the rest of the crew saluted. Ava stood there, scarred but alive. She wasn't popular. She wasn't pretty. She was the A-10, and she was back. She returned the salute. "All right," she said, her voice firm. "Let's get to work."